you want to go to law school, then this video is for you. Hi, my name is Molly, and I'm a third-year law student at Osgoode Hall Law School, and today I'm going to be telling you all the tips and tricks you need to get into law school. So first of all, we have to talk about the G word, grades, or GPA. There's no avoiding it. Grades are a very large component of any law school application, but having a bad year or a bad semester is not actually a death sentence to your application. There's ways around it, and I'm going to tell you how you can maximize your chances of getting into the law school of your choice, even with potentially a bad semester. Obviously, every school has sort of an implicit grade cutoff for what they consider to be competitive in any application. One thing that's important to know is here in Canada, I don't know if this is the case for US schools, but a lot of Canadian law schools have different ways that they calculate your cumulative GPA. For example, some schools take your best 3 years, your most recent 3 years, some take your best 2 years, your most recent 2 years. So there's all sorts of ways that your GPA gets calculated by the law schools. So do some research with the schools you're interested in applying to and what they look at specifically. This could influence the timing of when you decide to apply. For example, your first year of undergrad did not go well. Maybe you're now in your 4th year of undergrad and you're looking at applying, but you obviously don't have grades yet from your 4th year. If I were in your position, I would wait until you graduate and have all your final marks so that your first year could be written off entirely, and they would only take your most recent 3 years, second year, third year, 4th year, or whatever your best 3 years or however they calculate it, so that that bad year you had doesn't have to be counted. So it's important to know how the school you want to apply to calculates this GPA and then be strategic on when you apply. A lot of schools only require 3 years of undergrad education before you apply, but I would recommend, if you're in a 4-year degree program, finishing that 4-year degree program, not only because it's good to have a degree to fall back on, but because that way you can put your best foot forward and present, your best grades. And if they're a school that takes like your best 3 years, for example, you don't have to tell them which years to calculate. They will automatically take what is best. This doesn't mean they're not going to look at the rest of your transcript, but in what they consider that cumulative GPA that they're using to assess your competitiveness, this is what will go into that GPA. They may look at the rest of your transcript just to see what other courses you took and if you have like anything that stands out a lot, but at the end of the day, having a bad semester or a bad year is not a death sentence. My second piece of advice, and this is going to sound cheesy, but be yourself. And I know that sounds very cliche, but what universities or law schools are looking for among the sea of applicants they get are unique individuals that stand out. They're getting thousands of applications of people that are all strong students with probably similar backgrounds. What is going to make you stand out? What makes you memorable in their minds, and what makes you an interesting person? One way to express your uniqueness is through extracurriculars. It's very important to get involved in at least some extracurriculars somewhere along the line of your undergraduate education for law school applications, because this is what helps to not only make you stand out, show that you're capable of achieving good grades while also having other things going on in your life, but it also tells the admissions what you're into, what your interests are, what kind of extracurriculars you might join at their law school, and just make you more of a person and unique and stand out to them. Focus on whatever makes you happy and what things you are genuinely interested in. Don't try and join extracurriculars just because you think it's what law schools are looking for. They're not looking for anything in particular. They don't care whether you did like a mock trial or pre-law society type of thing. It helps if you're trying to demonstrate interest and why you're interested in law school, which can come into play in your personal statement. And it can also help to demonstrate why you think you'll be successful in law school. You could say, I have experience doing legal skills and XYZ. But at the end of the day, what they're looking for is just that you're involved in something that makes you unique and stand out, and that you have passions and interests outside of school. You aren't just focused on school all the time, because if that were the case, they would expect you to have good grades because you don't have other things going on in your life. Now, obviously, everyone's situation is unique. You might have family obligations outside of school. Maybe you have to work a part-time job in order to pay for your education. That totally works as well as extracurriculars. In fact, I think they like to see it. It shows a lot of resiliency and capability that you're able to do well in school while also having these outside obligations. Feel free to emphasize that in your application and explain in your personal statement how that shaped who you are and why that's going to make you a strong candidate for the law school. Being involved in extracurriculars does not mean you have to be involved in every club on campus or be president of several clubs. Just pick a few things that you find of interest. Even if you're in your third year, let's say, and you haven't gotten involved in anything yet, now's the time. It's not too late. Look for clubs that maybe have a low barrier to join, something that isn't competitive of a club to get into just to participate. Look for an easy bar to entry and just get involved, and something that you could potentially gain a leadership position in your fourth year. I think the optimal way to do it, if you haven't even started undergrad yet, is to, in your first year, canvas around different clubs that might be of interest to you, kind of bookmark in your mind 2 or 3 that you find really interesting, and see if you can join them as sort of a first year representative or something of that nature, or a general member, just to stay in touch with the club and look for opportunities to join in leadership positions in your upper years. Having a leadership position in a club, whether it be president or vice president or just another executive position, is a great way to show spirit and that you are able to take on additional responsibilities outside of your studies, and that you have passions and interests and hobbies. I've kind of alluded to it a few times already. The personal statement is another component of the application. It can vary from school to school what they're looking for, whether it's a particular question on a particular topic or a more general statement, kind of tell us about yourself. Some schools have 2 parts, some just have 1. The most important thing to know for the personal statement is craft a narrative about who you are. Structure it like an actual essay, have a thesis, and tie that thesis back to examples proving your point. What I mean by that is what they're looking for in this is who you are, beyond just what you tell them on your transcript, extracurriculars, whatever. They want to know what type of person you are, what motivates you, what makes you stand out, what makes you interesting, and why you'll be successful in law school. Because at the end of the day, law school is a business and they want to have good statistics on their graduates. They want people that get employed and succeed. They don't want people that fail and drop out. So tell them exactly why you will be a successful law student. You can do this by having a narrative or a thesis saying, I'm X, Y, and Z. I'm hardworking, I care about advocacy, and something else. Just pick 3 sort of personality traits, something you might emphasize on a resume, or soft skills, and demonstrate why you are those things through your extracurriculars. Sort of like a cover letter. Basically, you're going to be writing a cover letter for the law schools, if that makes sense. And find a way to tie all these examples of all the things you've done, all your extracurriculars and hobbies, and reasons why you're going to be a law student, tie them all together with a common thread of this is who I am as a person. One piece of advice that I have is to utilize your school's career office. This is something that I think does not get used enough in undergrad. At least I didn't see many of my peers using it, but it helped me immensely. And I went back multiple times to my career office. I went the first time to just get some general ideas and brainstorm with them on how to write one and what to talk about. They helped me come up with ideas for things that I wanted to include in mine. And then I went back once I had written it to get feedback and make tweaks, and they were very helpful. And I highly recommend that you use your school's office if you have one. Especially if you're just not sure where to start, they can really help you to brainstorm and get you thinking about what narrative you want to create. They'll ask you questions about yourself, and it'll just get you thinking yourself, who am I, what am I interested in, and it'll help you start the process. Final major piece of a law school application is, of course, the LSAT, the law school admission test. You will need to have a LSAT score in order to apply to law school. The biggest piece of advice I have for doing well on the LSAT is to really set aside time to study for it. I wouldn't recommend trying to study for it while you're doing your schoolwork as well, because you're just not going to give it the attention that it deserves. You want to do well, put your best foot forward, get into the school of your choice, and it's going to be really difficult to find time to do that if you're also busy with your schoolwork. I got really lucky that, well, not lucky, but when I was applying to law schools and writing the LSAT, it was during the pandemic and a lot of things were shut down. So I took that summer to just study and write the LSAT. I didn't have a summer job that summer, partly because of the pandemic. So it kind of worked out, but I would say taking some time off or a few months to just focus on writing the LSAT is really helpful, and you really need to treat it almost like a full-time job. By that I mean create a study plan for yourself to get through a certain number of practice questions or types of questions each week. Sit down and write practice exams. This is the biggest thing, because the hardest part about the LSAT isn't necessarily the questions. I feel like a lot of people are able to answer the questions if given enough time to think about them, but it's the time management on the test. That is what's really difficult, because you have to be able to answer all of the questions in a minute or less. Doesn't give you a lot of time to think, so it's really important to learn how to create mental shortcuts of, this is this type of question, this is what this question looks for, therefore I do this. Part of what you can do when you're studying is utilize all the resources available. There's lots of free resources out there for studying for the LSATs, as well as paid resources and tutors. I personally ended up using a tutor for my second attempt. Not because I did terrible on my first attempt, I didn't, but I had really high standards for what I wanted to get on the test, and I just wanted someone to tell me what to do and ensure that I kept to my study schedule, and it really helped me because they would assign sort of homework each week, and they exposed me to a lot of resources that I didn't know existed. Obviously, you don't have to pay for a tutor, but really take some time to do some research on the free resources available and write practice tests, as that is going to be the most beneficial thing. You have to learn how to answer the questions in a short amount of time. The LSAT, of course, is one of the things that, although it's a hard stat that schools sometimes will have a strict cutoff for, it is one of the things you can change about your application. You know, you can't change your GPA. Once you have the grades, you have the grades. All you can do is try to make your future ones better, but you can't erase the past ones. But the LSAT, some schools may do it differently, but I think for the most part, all schools in Canada at least just take your highest attempt. So there's no harm in taking the test multiple times, but you want to put your best foot forward as well as you can on the test, because having a good LSAT score can compensate for more lackluster GPA, for lack of a better word. So if you only have sort of a mediocre GPA that's maybe below the recommended competitive GPA, if you have a really good LSAT score, that will help bring your chances of success in getting into the law school of your choice up, especially in schools where they have a more holistic approach rather than hard cutoffs. That is my advice for how to get into law school in Canada. If you're in your first year of undergrad, you have lots of time and there's no need to worry and stress right now. All you need to do is focus on getting the best grades you can and potentially get involved in extracurriculars. Even if you're later into your undergrad journey, there's lots of time still to figure things out, and there's no harm in waiting till after you graduate to apply. Like I said, sometimes it can be in your best interest in waiting till you have all your grades. I hope this video helped you and you learned something new from it, and I wish you all the best of luck in your application. If you found this video at all useful, please consider giving it a like or comment down below any other questions you have that you'd like me to potentially address in an additional video in the future. And subscribe if you're interested in more law school related content, because I have more coming on the way.